I'll tell you my attorney story. I have a very good friend who is recently retired attorney after a very long practice here in Fort Worth. He retired as one of the partners. And he was often asked, his name is Richard Williams, I don't know if any of you know him, but he was often asked to interview prospective associates. So he was happy to do that. He was a very tough interviewer. So this one young man showed up 15 minutes early for his interview. He was very prompt, he was neatly dressed, neatly groomed, had everything that he needed, and he knocked on the door, and Richard opened the door and said, "Yes," and he said, "I'm here for the interview." And he put out his hand, and Richard said, "My name is Richard Williams. Nice to meet you. And tell me a little about yourself." And while the young man was talking, Richard took a step back and looked at the young man's shoes. And then he stepped forward and interrupted and said, "Sorry to interrupt, but this interview's over." And the young man kind of was stunned. He stood there and said, I don't understand. What's wrong?" And Richard said, "Your shoes aren't shined." And he looked down at his shoes and he said, "But can I still meet with you?" And he said, "No." And he said, "But why?" And Richard said, "If you're not going to shine your shoes, what other details are you going to miss when working for me?" The young man left. He didn't get the job. And that's a true story. And I tell Richard all the time, "Thank you for telling me that story," because I use it all the time. So, I mean, it sounds really tough, but how you appear, the things that you have done to create an image, if you leave out something that's seemingly not that important, it may be important to somebody else. Now, that young man might not have wanted to work for that attorney, but still, it's just something to think about. What you do tells a lot more about you than you actually say. Okay? All right.